Yeah, it's not live.
Yeah, we are now.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So, hello everyone. Very good evening. I am Debato Sinha, and I welcome you all on behalf of Vidhi Center for Legal Policy to join the premiere of My Way or the Highway. It is the third film in the series, Coating the Environment. And first of all, I thank you all of you for joining today and our guests of honor, Justice Deepak Gupta, Dr. S.P. Yadav, and Mr. Bittu Sahgal, who will be joining us later. Before we begin the screening, let me introduce ourselves. So, Vidhi Center for Legal Policy is an independent policy research think tank which does legal research to make better laws and improve governance for the public good. Vidhi engages with government and public institutions in drafting of key legislations and also undertakes independent research in areas like health, environment, education, judicial reforms, gender and sexuality, etc. Uh, the environment team at Vidhi has been working on the implementation of key environmental law and judgments since past several years. Some of our recent publications have been on the implementation of the uh, Public Liability Insurance Act, where we have seen the management of Environment Relief Fund, review of the processes under the EIA notification 2006, and functioning of the NGT, to name a few projects. Uh, the film which we are going to screen today is part of a research project where we are measuring the success or failure of major environmental judgments given by Supreme Court of India since 1990s in approximately 200 such cases. And for the first time, we decided to have a slightly different approach in presenting our findings in the form of 5 documentary films, which will be part of our larger academic report. The report will be coming very soon. And we have already released 2 movies. One is Hari Fulchari and Anukul Fight, which was released last week. Both these movies were based on implementation of judgments. The Hari Fulchari was based on the firecrackers ban in Delhi, and the Unequal Fight was on industrial pollution in Patancheru in Telangana. And we have 2 more films after this movie today, which will focus on dams in Uttarakhand and waste management in Delhi. Uh, Before we start the screening of this movie, I would like to invite my colleague, Dr. Dhwani Mehta, who is one of the co-founders of Vidhi and mentor of the environment team, to briefly share her thoughts on this project on implementation of environment judgments, how are these films are going to impact the future of environmental jurisprudence in India, and the role of Vidhi in this process. Dhwani.
Thank you, Dev. And thank you to everyone who is attending today, as well as all our guests of honor. As Dev said, the thinking behind this project began actually with a book on Indian environmental law that a friend and fellow environmental lawyer Shivani Ghosh was editing, where I contributed a chapter on how environmental judgments had been implemented in India, and where I explored what could potentially be some of the factors that influenced whether a judgment was implemented successfully or not. So, for example, was it political will that helped in some cases? Was it bureaucratic support? Was it an active and engaged citizenry? Were there successful monitoring mechanisms that the court itself had set up? These were some of the hypotheses that I advanced in that particular chapter. And then at Vidhi, we decided that it would be a useful exercise to carry forward this legal and theoretical research and to do empirical work that allowed us to assess whether these factors did actually play a role or not. So the idea behind this project was to be able to do some grassroots groundwork that allowed us to examine what the status of judgments was after they left the courtroom, and allowed us to assess the impact that courts were having apart from building environmental jurisprudence. It also allowed us to build partnerships with new organizations and stakeholders, and I'm very happy to have someone from each of these spheres on our panel today. We have Justice Deepak Gupta, who's played an integral role in judgments on wildlife conservation. We have Dr. Yadav, without whose efforts these judgments would not be a success. And we have an active citizenry in the form of Rohit Chaudhary as well, who's been the driving force behind the case that we want to showcase in today's film. And we will be joined by Mr. Bittu Sehgal, who's played such an important role in building up awareness and advocacy around environmental and ecological issues. So we think that this project, as well as these films, might potentially have an impact on environmental jurisprudence and litigation in India in the future, in the sense that they will perhaps allow judges to think about how likely it is that their orders and directions will be implemented. It will allow them to think about what some of the legal and procedural innovations could be. I mean, the Indian judiciary has always been at the forefront of this kind of innovation in the field of public interest litigation. And hopefully, our study into what are some of the monitoring and implementation mechanisms that work or not will allow this to develop more. And finally, this project should allow us to create certain metrics that allow us to measure the environmental rule of law. So, what is the extent to which laws and judgments are being successfully implemented and monitored, and how do we measure that? So, we hope that this entire project is able to contribute a little bit to that particular endeavor. And to that extent, I'm happy to sort of also announce that Vidhi wants to take forward its work in the field of wildlife conservation and protection, beginning with this film, and to eventually establish a dedicated center on ecology, law, and policy, which we hope will bring together biologists, policy experts, lawyers, activists, and experts from all kinds of relevant disciplines under one platform to conduct cross-cutting research. So the pandemic has of course shown us that there is no time like the present to concentrate on and focus our efforts on ecological conservation. And we think that to ensure long-term conservation benefits and reduce conflicts, India needs scientifically sound policies, better communication and enforcement of its laws, a wise allocation of resources, and a vigilant civil society ecosystem. So we believe that there is a need for a policy research center that can act as this kind of watchdog and facilitate the fantastic work that various conservation groups have already been playing, and allow us to bridge this gap between scientific research and legal policy. So that's all I'm going to say as far as Vidhi's role in this particular project goes. And Deb, is there anything else you'd like to say before we begin screening the film, or can we start off with that? Sorry, Deb, you're on mute, but I'll...
Just now, Director of Kaziranga National Park has also joined. So good evening, sir.
Good evening.
So we can now play the movie, and and this link will be also available on YouTube after the screening is over. The link which will be shared after this screening, and we will also hear our esteemed panel of guests after this movie.
So I'm going to begin sharing the screen now. And screening and playing the movie for everyone. Give me a minute.
Sure.
Life can be difficult if you're a one-horned rhinoceros in Kaziranga National Park, a UNESCO World Heritage Site and an important Indian tiger reserve. Apart from keeping yourself safe from poachers, you also have to survive the annual flood that hits Kaziranga, which lies on the active floodplain of the river Brahmaputra. To escape the floodwaters, you might want to move towards the hills, but they might be riddled with mines or a maze of concrete buildings. The other way, a wildlife corridor, might have saved you, but even that is hardly an option anymore. A highway runs along its length. Whether or not you can empathize with Kaziranga's one-horned rhinos, the fact remains that many animals, including rhinos, die there each year due to the combination of factors that include the annual flooding, increased human activity, and poaching. The Constitution of India requires the state to act as a trustee of the country's forests and wildlife, while also protecting its citizens from conflicts with animals. In recognition of this duty, the Supreme Court has passed several orders to protect the wildlife corridors between Kaziranga National Park and its adjoining areas. A vigilant activist, proactive officers from the state government of Assam and the National Tiger Conservation Authority are trying their best to enforce these orders and protect the wilderness and inhabitants of the Kaziranga landscape. Let's take a look at how their efforts are bearing fruit.
When you speak about the memories of काजीरंगा, it is very sweet. बचपन में हम हमेशा जैकल की हाउलिंग सुनते थे ड्यूरिंग विंटर्स इवनिंग होने के साथ साथ. हमारे बैकयार्ड में वी हैव सीन एलिफेंट्स, वी हैव हर्ड द ट्रम्पेट ऑफ एलिफेंट्स. हमारे गांव के पीछे एक रिवर चैनल हुआ करता था. वी यूज्ड टू प्ले एंड वी यूज्ड टू हैव फन. बट धीरे धीरे काजीरंगा की ब्यूटी खत्म होती जा रही है. सब कुछ सही चल रहा था, एवरीथिंग वाज फाइन. बट प्रकृति का विनाश किया किसने? काजीरंगा का विनाश किया किसने? कौन इसका जिम्मेदार है? हम खुद. Kaziranga, by virtue of its location in the floodplains of river Brahmaputra, experiences flood annually, and floods are very important to maintain the ecological function of Kaziranga. Without floods, probably Kaziranga may not survive.
बाहर आने के टाइम में तो हमारा जो काजीरंगा है उसमें से जीव जंतु निकाल के आता है इधर. तो ऐसे एक दिन सुबह में 7 बजे करीब हमने दुकान खोल के बैठा था, तो थोड़ा बाद में पीछे से हल्ला हो रहा था जो ऐसे बाघ निकला. जब घूम के देखा है तब लाए वो दुकान की तरफ ही घुसने लगा. तो जाके हमारे दुकान के अंदर में चला गया. जा करके वो एक बिस्तरा है उस पर जाके उठ गया.
Kaziranga landscape is a vast one. It includes the watershed areas of adjoining Karbi Anglong Hills, the mighty river Brahmaputra, and other important rivers like Dhansri and Diflu. During the floods, the wild animals of Kaziranga tend to move towards the higher grounds available in the foothills of Karbi Anglong. There is NH37 that runs along the southern side of Kaziranga, and several dhabas, resorts, petrol pumps and dwelling houses have come up in the recent years. With so-called development happening at the rapid pace, the wildlife of Kaziranga has hardly any access to the foothills.
There are 9 animal corridors out of 44 kilometer stretch from the east to west of the main landmass area. So in this 9 corridor, there are problems mainly in 3 corridors like Aldibari, Bagori and Harumati. In other corridor area, we don't have much problems. In these 3 corridors, there are a lot of establishments in the name of truck terminals, hotels, dabas, private properties, lengthy boundary walls. So now with the support of the Honorable Supreme Court order says that there should not be any constructions in the revenue area if it is the area falls under the corridor category.
मेरा नाम मोहम्मद जिलू शेख है. ये ढाबा बना रहा है. मैं मेसन का काम कर रहा हूँ. 1-2 महीने से काम हो रहा है. ये आपको गेंडा भी आती है, हाथी भी आता है, और ये आपको कॉरिडोर है, आमगुरी कॉरिडोर है। मेरा सुप्रीम कोर्ट का कोई पता नहीं है, ऑर्डर का कुछ मालूम नहीं है।
The Honorable Supreme Court has delivered several landmark judgments for conserving Kaziranga landscape. But the problem lies in executing those judgments. It is very important to create awareness in people and bureaucracy about the court cases.
Corridors are not used for ecologically unsustainable purposes. So that mandate has been given to the NTCA. And accordingly, when we received some complaint regarding the unsustainable land use practices being adopted in this particular landscape, Karbi Anglong, which is a notified corridor, this is one of the very important 32 corridors we have already identified. So we sent our regional officer, Regional Inspector General of Forest, to go and inquire into the matters. Once the report came to us, we asked the Chief Wildlife Warden to stop all these already unsustainable practices immediately, and then all other things followed.
Wildlife dispersing towards Deupara forest has to face artificial obstruction in the form of wall created inside the forest by Numaligarh Refinery Limited. So when I noticed all these violations done by Numaligarh Refinery Limited and the negative impact on the wildlife of this area, I approached National Green Tribunal. National Green Tribunal was pleased to pass an order demolishing this entire wall of approximately around 2 kilometers and to restore the area and give it back to the Forest Department for wildlife. Numaligarh Refinery Limited demolished approximately around 200 meters of the wall and was reluctant to demolish the entire wall as ordered by the National Green Tribunal. However, it is seen that Numaligarh Refinery Limited is yet to demolish the under constructed pillars of the buildings and to completely remove the razor blade wire fencing from the remaining portion of the wall, which is still detrimental to the elephants and the other wildlife in the area. They even approached Honorable Supreme Court of India. However, the Honorable Supreme Court of India dismissed the appeal of Numaligarh Refinery Limited and upheld the judgment of the National Green Tribunal.
All the 9 corridors are connected between the Karbi Anglong and Kaziranga through this mined area only. So wherever there is a mining activities, the animal cannot move freely. And then there are a lot of man-animal conflict in the revenue areas. So by lifting of cattle or killing of human beings or killing of animals by human beings, the conflict used to be there. So there are a lot of agriculture activities that are going on in the downstream area because of the mining in the upstreams. Now that the stream is already flow is already stopped. So such type of impact might be there in other stream also. We have to do the proper studies, and we are also going to involve the Assam Pollution Control Board to do the water testing of all the channels properly. Because we know that whenever there is a mining, that the chemical content will get changed. Such high chemical concentrated water, if the animal is going to drink, then definitely there will be harmful effect on the animal health too.
Being as an activist, the only option which I have that I could approach the highest court of the nation, and highest court of the nation has helped this landscape by giving this order. CEC played a critical role in protecting this landscape. I approached CEC in March 2018, highlighting the rampant mining in this area. And I was very happy to know that CEC responded to my complaint and visited Kaziranga for the inspection of the sites within 15 days. And after CEC found rampant mining itself, it followed by a report filed by CEC before Honorable Supreme Court of India in March 2019, and then Honorable Supreme Court of India banned mining activities in this landscape on 12th April 2019. So we are in the Harpek Pahar in the Silimkwa village. So this area was very drastically mined earlier. The hill started from that location, and a larger part of this hill has been mined. But the best part is that after the Supreme Court ban, within 6 months, in one monsoon, this area is getting restored. This area will not reach up to the glory which it had earlier, but I believe within 2 years, if mining is not done, this area is going to be restored properly and it will reach its first stage. हमें एक लाइन ड्रॉ करनी पड़ेगी जहाँ पे हमें ये देखना पड़ेगा कि एनिमल्स का एरिया कौन सा है और ह्यूमंस का एरिया कौन सा है.
Conservation versus development is a major points or topic for discussion mainly in case of Kaziranga.
हम अपने स्वार्थ के कारण हम एनिमल्स के एरिया को एनक्रोच नहीं कर सकते या उनकी लाइफ को या उनकी फ्यूचर को हम डार्कनेस की तरफ नहीं धकेल सकते.
Thank you. I hope you all have loved this movie, watching this film. And I must say, this movie is a very simple version of the problems, and the actual challenges are much more complicated. And only people who are familiar with this landscape and wildlife can truly understand the impact of this. We have seen in our last two films that, in Hari Fuljari and Unequal Fight, which were released before, that core directions remain paper tigers and implementation has always been a challenge. But the Kaziranga case, it gives us hope. And I must congratulate the petitioner, Rohit Chaudhary, Mr. Shiv Kumar, Director Kaziranga, and of course, the role played by CEC and NTCA to have a vigilant eye and for the commitment towards the wildlife. I now would like to invite Justice Deepak Gupta. He has a long history of dealing with environmental issues. While being an advocate at the High Court of Himachal Pradesh, he has filed a number of PILs for conservation of ecology and environment of the state. After being elevated as a judge, he headed the Green Bench of the Himachal Pradesh High Court and was the first judge in the country to impose rupees 100 crores as damages in an environmental case. He was the first Chief Justice of High Court of Tripura and has served as Chief Justice of Chhattisgarh High Court, and later became a judge of the Supreme Court of India in 2017. And he retired in May this year. He was also part of the famous social justice bench of the Supreme Court, which used to hear matters related to environment and social issues. In fact, this order banning mining and construction in Kaziranga landscape was co-authored by Justice Gupta, about which we have just seen this documentary film, The Impact of It. And sir, we are really honored by your presence and very much eager to hear your thoughts and experiences in wildlife conservation and the role of judiciary in protection of the wild species. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Debaditya. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, we can hear you.
A very good evening to you all. See, first of all, I must thank Vidhi Center and Debaditya for giving me this opportunity of really doing something which I love. That is trying my little bit to help the environment. It's something which I'm passionate about. I became a lawyer in 1978 and my first public interest litigation for environment was filed in 1980 in my personal capacity. So it's about a 40-year battle which I've been waging and I'll continue to wage it. This movie, I've seen it 3-4 times by now. I must first of all congratulate Rohit for the courage and tenacity which he's shown in following up this issue. You see, we need somebody.
Thank you, sir.
An enlightened citizenry is the most important part of any environmental or public interest litigation. There are many people who say that judges should not be activists and that we should not entertain public interest litigations. And I see some justification sometimes in what they say when courts interfere in matters where they shouldn't be treading. But when I became Chief Justice in Tripura, I had said that I'm an unapologetic activist judge, and I tried to be that, but within the bounds of law. Environment is one field, social justice being another, where judges will have to play a proactive role. In a country like India, where there are so many people who don't have the wherewithal to come to courts, the courts will have to sometimes take the battle on themselves, whether through public interest litigation or even through suo motu actions. I have headed the Green Bench for 3 years. I've been dealing with environmental litigation for many, many years, both as the Green Bench and these are matters which you can't leave to people to come to court. Sometimes you can't, when it stares you in the eye that something wrong is happening, why should you not take steps? This, in fact, is one of the few partly successful stories. I won't say it's a totally successful story, but it's a partly successful story. And it happens because of Rohit, because of Mr. Siva Kumar and people from NTCA and the CEC, which gave a report within 15-20 days, and then it enabled the Supreme Court to pass an order within a month thereafter. But that, frankly, is not an answer in the long run. How many Rohit Chaudharys are there in the country? I mean, there are many Rohit Chaudharys who will be silenced or bought off. The courts have to be, even with the NGT now in place. You see, I have a little problem with that, and I said it in my dissenting judgment of Roger Matthew. One bench of the NGT sitting in Delhi with a few benches, how do you hold hearings? And therefore, in Roger Matthew, I had said that if NGT doesn't have a bench in any state, then the High Court should not have any difficulty in entertaining litigation, public interest litigation, even relating to matters which may strictly fall within the NGT's purview, because that's not an alternative efficacious remedy if you have to come to Delhi to fight the battle. Because the battle is half lost. See, I was Chief Justice of Tripura, I was Chief Justice of Chhattisgarh. Then NGT, no bench of the NGT ever went to these two states. These are as important parts of the country, and these are tribal areas. where the forest wealth in Chhattisgarh and Tripura was amongst the highest. Fortunately, I am from Himachal. I've lived in 3 states where by and large, there's still a lot of greenery, and we do respect the environment. As far as forest officials are concerned, I've interacted with hundreds of them, and by and large, I can say the vast majority of them are very sensitized and are very, sensitive to the needs not only of wildlife but of the flora and fauna of the country. But that cannot be said of the other bureaucracy and the political will. That is what is lacking, and the political will is lacking because of the big industries being behind these projects. See, so that is a battle which will have to be fought on the long run. I have today, because the time is short, I thought I'd make a short presentation on protected areas and basically dealing with animal corridors instead of dealing with a very wide area. So let me try and get you if I can, I think I should be able to manage it. Are you getting the full screen or?
Yes, sir, we're getting the full, like the slideshow. It's fine. Perfectly fine.
Okay, I don't know. I can. It's not coming. Then my notes are also showing, I suppose.
No. Only the slideshow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So protected areas and animal corridors. One can never overemphasize the need to protect the ecology and the environment. Nature has blessed us with so many different facets. The wildlife in the jungle, in the seas, the coastal areas, the mountains, and wildlife, because we're dealing with wildlife today, it is an integral part of our environment. And the world would not be the same if we did not have wildlife. In fact, we cannot exist without wildlife being there. Humankind can survive only if there is biodiversity. If there's no biodiversity, we would become a single race which would not be able to survive. There are various laws which have been passed in this regard. We have protected areas have been defined under the Wildlife Protection Act. And the protected area means a national park, sanctuary, conservation, community reserve. Then there's Chapter 4 of the Wildlife Act deals with protected areas. A tiger reserve, on the other hand, is notified under Chapter 4B of the National Tiger Conservation Authority. The Act and the rules thereunder lay down the nitty-gritty of what can be done and what cannot be done in these areas. And we all know as a fact that no development can be done in these areas. So that the law is very clear, there's no doubt about the law. There are 870 protected areas in this country covering more than 165 lakh square kilometers. But are we able to protect that 165 lakh kilometers? It's a huge area. How do we protect it? And then in addition to this, these are the protected wildlife sanctuaries, etc. In addition to that, we have lakhs of square kilometers under protected forests, demarcated protected forests, undemarcated forests, etc. The National Tiger Conservation Authority was also constituted under the Wildlife Act and defines wildlife corridors as inherent geographical linkages through forests, river courses, or other habitat attributes which facilitate movement of tigers and other wild animals from one source to another. You see, we as human beings like to go on holidays. We like to visit our relatives. Animals don't have to do that, but they have to move from one place to other because of it's necessary to move. At times like the Brahmaputra, when the floods hit the Kaziranga sanctuary, the animals have to move out. Similarly, there are areas where migration will take place because of famine, because of drought, because of heat, because of change in weather. I mean, we all love, I mean, I have not done it, but I'd love to go and see the great migration in East Africa one day or the other. I was planning it out till COVID put a knot to my plans this year. So, and the word WWF dealing with corridors says the obvious function of corridors is to facilitate physical movement, which is crucial to the long-term viability of animal population, feeding, foraging, seasonal migration, as well as permanent movements in case of habitats being rendered unfit due to climate change or other anthropogenic factors are facilitated by and occur through corridors. So these corridors are now recognized by experts in the WWF, by the Indian Parliament, by the National Tiger Conservation Authority, as being necessary, that these corridors are essential for the well-being of these animals. I had mentioned earlier that I was Chief Justice in Chhattisgarh. When I went there, anyway, I'll come to that later. Now it's coming to the movie. You know, Kaziranga, as the movie itself says, so I don't want to waste more time, that is the floodplain is part of the flood. As Rohit put it beautifully, if there were no floods, there would be no Kaziranga. The floods are an essential part of that. You can't have a dam and stop floods, and because Kaziranga will come to it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It has 2/3 the population of 100 rhinoceros. So 2/3 of the 66% reside in Kaziranga. It also has many other species. I was not lucky enough to spot a tiger in Kaziranga when I went there, but I've seen swamp deer, elephants, wild water buffaloes, turtles. That turtle photograph that was also from Kaziranga. This is also from Kaziranga. And the forest officials, I found this huge bird variety. There's a lot of fauna. And all this, the forest officers were doing the best job. It's not that they were not doing. But Kaziranga was hit because of insurgency. It was hit because it has been hit badly because of poaching. But now, what is worst is it is hit because of this road, the national highway. Now the national highway is there to stay. We like it or we lump it, but it is there to stay. This can't be removed. But if this can't be removed, at least we can ensure that no further development, that's not development, I don't call it development. No further construction or any activity takes place. What is there, let it be there, but remove what is the mining, which fortunately has come to an end. Regain what we have lost and try to bring Kaziranga back as far as we can to its pristine glory as before. Not only Kaziranga, I've touched on this elephant corridors, because this was another important matter which I was dealing with when I was in the Supreme Court. And last year we had passed an order in 2018 and 2 years back, prohibiting all construction in the corridors of Tamil Nadu. In fact, the Madras High Court had passed a fantastic order in a case, A. Rangarajan versus Union of India, wherein they had stopped all construction and they had decided this is the corridor. I must give credit to the collector of Nilgiris district, a young lady who's fought a great battle for elephants. And, we have lost almost 400 elephants in 3 years prior to 2019 because of this rail accidents, road accidents, because of this corridors being violated. Now, what is important is that this year, on 14th of October, a judgment has been delivered by the Supreme Court in Hospitality Association case, where it has been clearly, I think if you've not read this judgment, you must go through this judgment. It is by Justice Abdul Nazir. It's a wonderfully written judgment, and it really brings out how and why these animals, in this case elephants, need a corridor. And because they have upheld the Madras High Court judgment and have held that the corridor has to be there, only they have referred a portion of the dispute to a new committee. But that portion is only that some of the hotel resort owners claimed that some of the land which was not part of the original corridor had also been included in the corridor. Now, coming back to when I was in Chhattisgarh, I had this, I had to deal with a lot of cases of man elephant-human conflict. Because of excessive, Chhattisgarh has bauxite mines, coal mines, steel mines, iron ore mines, you name it and they have it. It is one of the richest states in the country today, but the tribals have not benefited. And because of this huge mining, the elephant corridors have come to an end, which led to this man-animal conflict. Sometime else, Divya Jyoti, if we can get a chance, I have a very interesting, my first case in Chhattisgarh High Court was about a young elephant, 5-6-year-old elephant called Sonu, because he had allegedly killed a few people. Now, whether he should be kept in captivity or whether he should be kept in jail, etc. So, but that is another story. Some other time we'll talk about it. Now, threats to animal corridors. Increasing population is the biggest threat. You see, we have failed to keep our population in control. In the last 70-80 years after independence, we've grown 4 times, 5 times what was our population. Now, when our population grows, we encroach upon the land of the wildlife. It is not that the wildlife is encroaching upon our land. We are encroaching upon them. And as population grows, we need more land for infrastructure, energy, etc. Then building roads, rails, power lines. We talk about living in the 21st century, 22nd, being the superpower in the next 50 years or something. But we'll be a superpower only if the world survives. And the world will only survive if we have an ecologically, environmentally stable world. If global temperatures rise by another 2 degrees or something, which we'd promised not to do in Paris, but which we're failing to do, if they rise 2 degrees, the effect is going to be a calamity of unexpected proportions. When thousands and thousands of kilometers of coastal areas get inundated by the sea, you will see what I call environmental migrations happening from one country to the other. If in the Bay of Bengal there is increase of 2 degrees, you will see large-scale migration happening from Bangladesh to India, whether you like it or not. Because when people don't have food to eat, they will even face bullets to go to a place which is slightly safer for them. So when we talk about these infrastructure projects, etc., and say that this is for economy, my only answer is that economy for whom? For the coming generations. But if we don't leave them a world which is good enough to live in, then what will the good economy going to do for them? We have to, I'll highlight 2 other issues. One is the draft EIA notification 2020, which fortunately has not seen light of day till day. But this draft notification needs to be really relooked by the government. I've spoken about it earlier also. Our assessment of environmental impact assessment of the projects is done by whom? Is done by engineers who are engaged by the project proponent. So a company pays a big consultancy firm, please prepare a detailed project report for us showing what is the environment impact assessment of this project on this sanctuary or etc. And I have yet to see any of these companies give a project report against the company. Because they get the money from them, they give them that report. I have been advocating this for the last 10, 15 years, and I again reiterate, there should be a central body which should have about 10 consultants or 20 consultants under it. I mean, there can be all these firms, but who will get the work? It will be that body will decide. The company will have to go to that body that we want to set up a project in this area, and that body will decide who will it go to. They will not directly know who's the company, and then only we can have a proper assessment. And though, they say pipelines don't require much land, etc., because you just lay them underground, but the impact they have on the environment is terrible, because for those months or years when the pipeline is being laid or the road is being laid, then there is a lot of problem for animals, And animals are much more sensitive than human beings. They can't shift anywhere. We've already constricted them to their sanctuaries and their protected areas. Now they can't go anywhere else, and when they go anywhere else, there's a man conflict. Another issue with regard to this NIA notification, this new EIA notification draft, is that it says if it relates to army, etc., and it's 100 kilometers within the LAC, then it will not apply. No, that's ridiculous. Because 100 kilometers, as the crow flies, most of Himachal, most of Arunachal Pradesh, I don't know, maybe as the crow flies, maybe a lot of the Kaziranga plain may be out of bounds. So I don't know. We have to look into that. Now, what's the way forward? It's not only that we crib, but we have to. You see, you have to integrate a comprehensive corridor management into environment law. I feel that corridor management as a subject, it should form a separate part, a chapter of a law, that this is how a corridor is to be maintained. As opposed to handling it on a case-to-case basis, which we're doing now. We should have a law that if this is the thing, you see, we have in the Supreme Court recently also said that within 5 kilometers, no mining will take place of any sanctuary. Now, there could be an exception. There are some sanctuaries which are only 10 square kilometers. So when you say 5 kilometers, it will not take place, it makes the sanctuary much larger. So you, on a case-to-case basis, you can have an exception, but the norm shouldn't be on a case-to-case basis. Identifying land uses that are compatible and sustainable within the wildlife corridor. Mining will not be sustainable. Agriculture may be sustainable. Agriculture of some time may be sustainable. Agriculture of some other type may not be sustainable. Agriculture will be sustainable when you have homestays provided in the villages. Why do we have to build resorts everywhere? I don't understand why we come up with this concept of having 5-star resorts in these wildlife sanctuaries, and people having 5-star weddings in 5-star resorts during COVID season, because those are the safest. So they feel that they can have, the best of both worlds. The idea should be integrate this tourism with the community. See, in Spiti, in Himachal Pradesh, which is a very far-flung area, homestays which were introduced 7-8 years back have become very successful. So also in Sikkim, I've seen very successful homestays in the remotest of villages, where one room in a house is set up and they have to have a Western style toilet, etc., so that, and they have toilets, so that the community earns from it. Kana Wildlife Sanctuary is another park, national park, is one park where I found that the local community was totally integrated, either by way of being guides or owning the jeeps or selling, t-shirts, and all were all made locally. And there needs to be greater coordination between the experts. I somehow find that though the forest department says something else, the TCA says something else, and the industry says something else, and we have to look at it from the view of environmental protection and not from the view of just development. Sustainable development, according to me, is only that development where no irreparable damage is caused to the environment. If irreparable damage is caused to the environment, then the development cannot be termed to be sustainable. Lastly, this, we've talked about the world over, we have to develop. If we have to, there will be roads. There are already roads. Like even on Kaziranga, we can think of underpasses and overpasses. There could be areas where you could have either the animals going through an underpass or a tunnel being made underground. We've been so much in the news recently about the Atal Tunnel, 9 kilometers long, from connecting the Manali area to the Lahaul Spiti area. Now, why can't we build 2 kilometer or 3 kilometer long underground tunnels for the traffic to move, and the surface remains undamaged? So I think that by and large would look at it. Thank you. But when I end, I would like to end with what I repeat time and again. poor environment, a bad environment can never be good economics. If there is no animal kingdom, there can be no human kingdom. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Justice Gupta, for sharing your experiences with us. And I must say that we thoroughly enjoyed your masterclass on protected areas and wildlife corridors. You also talked about the EIA and the need for integrated comprehensive corridor management into the environmental law framework involving local communities, which is very important, and better coordination between different stakeholders. This also reminds me of the need for the strategic impact assessment, which many countries are doing, like having assessments much before, at planning stage. So thank you very much, sir. It was very enlightening, and I will come to you again after, during discussion for the question and answer. Now I invite Dr. S.P. Yadav, who is known as a person who has driven the tiger conservation movement from the top, not only in India, but globally. Dr. Yadav is presently an Additional Director General of Project Tiger and Member Secretary of National Tiger Conservation Authority and Central Zoological Authority of India. He is an Indian Services Officer with a very rich academic and professional background as a tiger conservationist. He also holds a PhD in tiger conservation and has 3 master's degrees, one in agriculture, plants breeding, one in forestry and wildlife, and also an MBA. He served the NTCA as a Deputy Inspector General between 2008 and 2015. And during this time, he also represented India at the Global Tiger Summit in Russia. Thereafter, he worked as an Assistant General, Secretary General of Global Tiger Forum between 2015 to 2018, which is the only intergovernmental international body on tiger conservation. Sir, we are really privileged to be joined by you, and I request you to please share your thoughts on the tiger conservation status in the country, the role of Kaziranga as a source in Northeast, which we have read in some reports as well, and challenges of the growing competition for resources between wildlife and human, and the future plans of the NTC. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Devaditya, Dhwaniji, Vedi Center, Honorable Justice Deepak Gupta, my colleague, Mr. Shiv Kumar, Field Director, Kaziranga, Rohit, and all participants. It's an honor to be here today and discussing the very relevant issue, which is very close to my heart. At the outset, I would like to say that saving tigers, tiger conservation, or for that matter, wildlife conservation, it's not only the responsibility of the government, but it's a joint shared responsibility of entire civil society. That includes central government, state governments, NGOs, and wildlife conservationists, and as our fundamental duty as enshrined in our Constitution of India, it's a responsibility of every citizen. Let us see the protected area network in the country. Honorable Justice Gupta has beautifully explained the protected area network in the country and the importance of corridor, what is the way forward and all. We have very large network of protected areas in our country. And if you talk of tiger reserves, we have 50 tiger reserves. With 1973, when Project Tiger was launched, we started with 9 tiger reserves. Now we have 50 tiger reserves and covering around 72,000 square kilometer area, roughly 2.2% of geographical area of the country. And we are global leader in tiger conservation at this moment. And we have more than 70% wild tiger population in the country. And our efforts in tiger conservation is being recognized world over. Like recently, the Guinness World Record was awarded to our country for the largest camera trapping exercise. And very recently, last 15 days, T/2 and doubling the tiger number awards was given to 2 of our tiger reserves, Pilibhit in Uttar Pradesh and Manas Tiger Reserve in Assam. So this is all testimony of our good efforts in tiger conservation, because tiger is our national animal and the government gives a lot of priority to it. But if you see, for a tiger, a viable population, a sustainable population, we must have 1,000 to 1,200 square kilometer of core area, which has to be inviolate, and equal quantity, equal amount of buffer area. And also the most important thing is tigers and other wildlife cannot survive in the islands of protected area. They need corridor connectivity. You must be aware that we lost all our tigers in Sariska Tiger Reserve in 2005 in Rajasthan probably apart from poaching, the major issue was that it was not connected with corridor. It was a kind of island. So the corridor is important, beautifully explained by Justice Gupta. I won't comment on that. We have issued, the government of India has issued guidelines for mitigation measures for linear infrastructure projects like canal, road, railway line, transmission line and all. But only thing is the problem probably lies in proper implementation of rules and guidelines. And that requires a lot of I remember this an old NH7, now NH44 national highway going through Kanha and Pech corridor. The matter went up to the Honorable Supreme Court, and after that, mitigation measures were adopted. Some underpasses and overpasses were made, and now we are getting beautiful camera trap photographs and evidences that how the tigers and other wild animals, they are using these corridors. It increases the project cost. But at the same time, it's highly helpful, highly supportive to wildlife conservation. And when we speak to this project proponents and all, they say that now that they are also being sensitized. And let me tell you, recently we have received a proposal of NH, National Highway, from NHAI in Rajasthan, and they have proposed through and through tunnel, 6-lane highway through and through tunnel crossing Mukundra Tiger Reserve. This is something, this was unthinkable in past, say, 10 years back. We never thought that this will happen, but now they also are sensitized. They themselves are proposing through and through. It's a Mukundra Tiger Reserve, its width is about 7 kilometers, and it's the kind of hillock. So they will be constructing a state-of-art through and through underground tunnel in this project. So this is a good development. NHAI, for that matter, they have issued a circular advisory to all their implementing agencies to avoid, as far as possible, the national parks and sanctuaries for taking up new road constructions. I believe that because of activists like Rohit, because of intervention by NGT, because of interventions of Honorable Supreme Court and High Courts, now this infrastructure agencies, the ministries, they are much more sensitized. But it's the pace of sensitization to me appears little slow, but it's taking place. And this pandemic has taught a wonderful lesson that most of the disease which are genetic, and this is happening because of over exploitation of our wildlife. The source of not only this COVID-19, but there are other Ebola, SARS virus, H1N1. There are a number of such diseases. They have the origin in the wild animals. So if we want to protect our human generation from such pandemic, we never thought in our lifetime that time will come that whole trains, bus, transportation, planes will stop. We never thought, we never imagined. So, but this is not the end of it. We must be prepared for another such kind of pandemic with more frequency, unless we learn a lesson and respect wildlife, respect all kind of life system in this world. Unfortunately, there is no legal provision. This corridor word, as Justice Gupta, Honorable Justice Gupta has told us, it was first inserted in the Wildlife Protection Act through the Tiger Conservation Authority under that chapter. The corridor word was first introduced in that. But unfortunately, there is no legal provision to notify these corridors. These corridors had been identified by the NTCA over successive annual tiger estimation. And at macro level, they have been identified and delineated, but there is no notification of boundaries of these corridors. They get legal, surrogate legal protection we include them in our Tiger Conservation Plan. Tiger Conservation Plan is a legal document, a statutory requirement for each tiger reserves, which includes core area, buffer area, and corridor area. So they get legal surrogate protection through the Tiger Conservation Plan. But we must look into the root cause, why our corridors are being exploited or not maintained, or what are the factors regarding it. And we must try to address the root cause, nip in the bud itself. Because There are now, if you see Singapore, the developed countries, beautiful mitigation measures, they have been developed like underpasses and overpasses and beautiful escape for animals. We must look into all technological solutions, and only then we will be able to protect our tigers and other wildlife for the posterity, for future, for our next generation, for our kids. With these words, I will close my remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your thoughts, especially the legal hurdles in your declaration of corridors. And though we have corridors for tigers, but we all know that it is not only tiger corridors but many animals. All the animals need corridors, and the underpasses, overpasses, like Justice Gupta also shared, this also has its limitations. Like some animals will prefer underpass, some will prefer overpass, some animals may not prefer, and it also gives some opportunity to hunters, poachers, to set up there. It's also good to know the important role of NTCA has been playing in protecting the tiger habitats in the country. And we wish you very best for all your endeavors for the tiger conservation. And we will be happy to engage with NTCA for any policy and legal aspects, if we can do something together. Bittu sir is a little bit stuck. So he just called me and he said he will take 5 minutes more. But today we also have, till we wait for Mr. Sehgal to join, I will quickly go to Mr. P. Shivkumar, who is the director of Kaziranga National Park, who is with us today. And so I think he's there. Sir, are you here?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes. I can hear you. So, sir, first of all, big thank you for agreeing to be part of this documentary and facilitating our shoot last year. I remember, that time we spent a lot of time in the park, in us to the issues. We sat with you also. And I hope you have liked the movie. And
yes.
I have just one question for you. Everyone talked about implementation. Justice Gupta also said, its implementation is a big challenge. And being the director of the Kaziranga National Park, you had the greatest responsibility on the wildlife, maintaining this diversity, saving for poaching activity, all which is like regular activities there. But in spite of all those things, you have been quite successful in implementing those directions of Supreme Court and NTCA. So tell me one thing, being at such a position, you also have to coordinate with various government departments and authorities, because wildlife is just, not just wildlife, because it has many more angles to it. Many more departments, many more kind of thing. So for example, you have highway authority, national highways passing through it. You have revenue area, so revenue department comes into play. Then you have NTCA, which is like the authority on the tiger, anywhere tiger habitat in the country. Now CEC also on the behalf of Supreme Court monitoring, very closely monitoring this situation. And over that, you also face this very particular problem of having political boundaries, because Karbi Anglong Hill, which is just adjoining the Kaziranga, is it's autonomous district council, which has its own set of governance. So how do you manage to address all these issues, and whether interventions from highest bodies, be it NTCA or Supreme Court, has helped this landscape, and what are the challenges you still face in implementing these orders?
Thank you, Sinha. Last year, when we, first I thank Honorable Justice Gupta sir, SP Yadav sir, Mr. Rohit Chaudhary and team with the great recommendations. It's really helped us to show that how what are the problem basically Kaziranga is facing, how all the courts basically from Honorable High Courts, NGT and Central Empower Committee and Honorable Supreme Court helping Kaziranga to conserve its resources. Last year, when this order was issued, there were a lot of protests, mainly in mainly in two ranges, mainly in Central Range and Western Range, because lot of the villages, they were involved in the mining activities. So they were looking for a proper alternatives, and but state government ensured smooth implementation of Honorable Supreme Court order. We can say that in case of mining, it's almost 100% banned, and but in case of corridor, when the court already put the ban against the construction activities, but all the lands are basically, most of the lands are private land. So the owners, they having the rights to construct their residential building or whatever the activities they want to do. So we have to properly compensate it. But this order basically helped quite a lot to sort out all the problems which we are mainly in the buffer and in the corridor area. After this order, this state PWD-NH with the support from the NTCA and Wildlife Institute of India and the Park Authority we identified the elevated road stretch. It's almost 35 kilometers elevated road. The project cost will be around 3,500 crores. So we are expecting financial support from JICA. So the DPR is already almost completed. And last year, government Assam has constituted the committee to identify the boundary of the corridor area. So that work also almost completed. So we are waiting for the formal notification for all these 9 corridors. And apart from that, 2015, Honorable High Court, they issued the order during 1985. Kaziranga has got 6 number of additions apart from the original national park area. Only addition number 1 and 4 formally handed over to the Kaziranga till 2015. In last 13 years, the remaining 4 additions never handed over. And during 2015, Honorable Guwahati High Court intervened. They instructed within 30 days they should do the eviction and they should hand over the area. But even after that also, that order was not implemented. And last year, after the Supreme Court ban order, we have taken that is an opportunity to implement the Honorable Guwahati High Court order also. So because of that, we have taken over all the additions except the part of the second addition area. Apart from that, state government has newly notified 3 more new additions. So now Kaziranga is having a 9 addition, and Kaziranga has grown from 430 square kilometer to 914 square kilometer, almost 900 square kilometer area without any encroachment. In the remaining area, NTCA already sanctioned the money. And if we can clear the compensation, we can get hold of that remaining second edition area also. So I have to thank the NTCA, they've taken the proactive role. And apart from this area, we also had a meeting with the council head, that Honorable Chief Executive Member of Karbi Anglong. We never had a such type of meeting in the past, and we told about their problems. We have to work together because Kaziranga means we cannot only a national park area. Kaziranga should have a landscape approach instead of a park level approach. Kaziranga means the Brahmaputra area, grassland area, and the Karbi Anglong Hills. The Karbi Anglong Hills comes under the council, so we have to involve the council authority also. So recently we had a meeting with them, and the NTCA IG sir also suggested that the area bordering with the Kaziranga should be brought under the buffer area category of Kaziranga Tiger Reserve, or otherwise Karbi Anglong also can have an independent tiger reserve. So we had an in-depth discussion with the council authority. So they agreed for a Karbi Anglong Tiger Reserve instead of bringing the area under the Kaziranga Tiger Reserve. So that's all a good option. So they already identified around 500 square kilometer of area as a Tiger Reserve area. But still a lot of work we have to do. And mainly in case of mining site, even though mining is stopped, some of the area showing the reclamation, but we have to do a lot of investment mainly to restore all those areas which were mined. And in case of communities, wherever we have taken the area, the fringe area, we have involved, we have brought them under the ecotourism category. We also want to move our tourism from the core area to the buffer area. And wherever possible, we have to bring certain area, we have to add some area to the Kaziranga authority controls. But in case of this elephant reserve, and apart from this corridor, 9 corridor is a big area. Out of 64 kilometers, almost 38 kilometer national ways falls under the corridor category. We are talking about the corridor, but in case of Kaziranga, I can say that basically we don't have a corridor. This is basically contiguous landscape, be to the national highway passing through the Kaziranga area and development all along the national highways. Now we are using the terminology of corridor. Corridor, I can say that the area which is connecting Kaziranga with Namiri or Kaziranga with Orang, we can say that's a corridor area. Recently, this 9th addition to Kaziranga is basically connecting Kaziranga with Namiri is notified. But in case of remaining 9 corridor area, we have to work it out instead of corridor. If we can add this area by compensating the villager permanently to the Kaziranga authority in the name of maybe national park or wildlife sanctuary or reserve forest, it will give you a permanent solutions. Otherwise, definitely that may be due to the support of Honorable High Court, last 1 year we sustain it. But it will be difficult because the villagers telling that you compensate us. So it's a huge investment we needed, somebody has to support us because we have to do the elevator project that is around 3,500 crore plus project. And in all this 38 kilometer area where a lot of private lands are there, we have to compensate those villages. So we hope that government will take care of it. Thank you.
So thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And basically, like, it is good to know that, you have sorted out issues and Karbi Anglong is going to come up with a new tiger reserve.
Yeah.
And when we protect tigers, so we protect an ecosystem, and then protect all the animals in the ecosystem, because the tiger is the top of the food chain. And any law, any government policy cannot be successfully implemented unless people are willing to accept it and be sensitized about the need of such conservation activity and how it is going to benefit them. And that's very important. Like, awareness plays an important role, and this cannot happen overnight, because continuous efforts. Some generations, people like dedicate their whole life. And today we have one such a guest who is a very well-known personality in wildlife conservation. He had dedicated his entire life in documenting the Indian wildlife, sensitizing Indians towards native wildlife diversity, and actively driving the conservation movement in India. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Bittu Sehgal, the founder and editor of Sanctuary Asia. He needs no introduction. His magazine Sanctuary Asia has been published since early 80s, much before most of us were even born, and it is one of the oldest and most credible wildlife magazines of India. He has been associated with Project Tiger since its inception, and has played a significant role in success. He has launched various initiatives under Sanctuary Asia to reduce human-wildlife conflicts around tiger reserves, produced over 30 documentaries, and launched popular programs like Kids for Tiger, which is quite popular. And he has also served on a number of government and non-government bodies, including the National Board of Wildlife, Animal Welfare Board, State Wildlife Board of Maharashtra, the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN. He has also been part of this expert appraisal committees for environment clearances in Ministry of Environment and Forest, Government of India. And he is an ardent supporter of grassroots activists, and established this Sanctuary Wildlife Service Award and Sanctuary Wildlife Photography Awards to honor those people who are working towards protecting the wildlife in India. His initiatives like Mud in Boots project and community-owned, community-operated nature conservancies are some of the unique initiatives, which are aimed at rewilding lost wildlife spaces. And a very humble person, always smiling and always willing to help young conservationists. Bittu sir, we are truly blessed to have you here with us today. I now welcome you to share your thoughts on the current situation in Kaziranga and all other wildlife habitats in the country, because they all face the similar issues, similar conflicts of conservation versus development. And you have such a long experience in managing this thing. You have seen almost all PAs, all reserve forests in India. So what does the future look like, and what the role do you see of the judiciary, government, and people in ensuring we leave this planet livable? So over to you, sir.
Devaditya, I just sent you a small chat message saying the real hero is you. It is people of you, like you, people, younger people, my generation. I personally think there will be tribunals, and my generation will be written about for the next 1,000 years as the people who almost destroyed the planet. I say almost only because I know so far we don't have the technology to destroy it. If we had, we would completely destroy it. The point is just this simple. All the people on this panel right now, I mean, you look at what Rohit is doing somewhere, and my way or the highway it's the highway or no way. This is what we seem to be running as a country. There are 2 or 3 realities that we as people looking to protect the biosphere must understand today. The first reality is that economists are living a deluded life, thinking that they can have unlimited growth on a finite planet. Even as a child, all of us were told matter cannot be created or destroyed. The amount of water you have is what you have. It will not change. And yet we are pretending as though this is something which is an unending horn of cornucopia, ये एक ऐसी चीज है, ऐसी बास्केट है कि देते ही जाएगी, खाली होते ही नहीं जाएगी. But the hard fact is the environment, the economy is a wholly owned subsidiary of the environment, and every single habitat, whether it is Kaziranga, take one single example of Kaziranga. Kaziranga is not a rhino sanctuary. Kaziranga is a fish factory. Every time the Brahmaputra breaks its bank, the small fish fry come into the wetlands, the depressions. For 1 full year, they will feed on rhino dung, on elephant dung, on waste, on this and that and the other. When the chital fish grows this big, it feeds all the way to Bangladesh. It's feeding people. Kaziranga is essential for the people of the Bay of Bengal to have their food supply. Kaziranga is also one of those places which will hold the floods. I mean, at the end of the day, a forest is only nothing else but a sink, not just for carbon, but for water. And this misunderstanding, thinking that Kaziranga is an impediment to development, it is beyond reason. 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-olds understand कि वो पुरानी एक पिक्चर होती थी उसमें एक गाना था, आमदनी अठन्नी खर्चा रुपया तो ठन ठन गोपाल. We have already gone beyond. Than Than Gopal to ho gaya. But now what is happening is that when the British left, we thought that the era of colonization is over. But the fact of the matter is we have become the colonizers. When I say we, I am not talking of you, Devaditya. I'm talking about my generation. I was born in 1947. I was kissed on the right cheek, I'm told, by Lady Mountbatten. And I am a criminal because my generation, I have not been able to stop them. Despite knowing what climate change was 20 years ago, I was unable to stop them. Only thing that I can do is to speak to you, to speak to young people like you and say to them, you don't have to get angry, just get involved. Now the evidence is before us. Before we had to argue, we had to present things. We go to Paris, we get to scope this, we go somewhere. I've served on the Ministry of Environment's expert appraisal committees for 20 years. Each time, once when I came in over there, by the way, you know, Punjabi mein kehte hain ki tanabazi, you know. A big clap, Prerna, you might have felt it, but I have felt it in the earliest days. Pavla Sahab will probably remember. I walked in and the whole people started to clap. Desh Bhakt Aaya, Desh Bhakt Aaya. Apne desh ka ek hi desh bhakt hai. Hum log sab anti-national hai. You know, this kind of communication, it was made to express that we are CIA spies. We are working for this industry because we don't want that to come. So I filed a case against a thermal plant in Dahanu, and that case, when it was won, at that point, environment sensitive zonations came about. The first India's green bench came about. That we started to use for buffer areas, but now we are undoing all that. It's like having a rope ladder, your house is on fire and somebody is cutting all the strands of the rope ladder now. So we are, if you see a sense of panic and a sense of anger also, and also a sense of sadness in me, it is because what children understand, 10-year-old, my constituency average age is 12, you know, Devaditya, you're also a little too old for me, you know. So, but the fact is, they understand that nature is self-repairing. I tell children, if you had a home, the doors are made of chocolate. The windows are made of lollipop. You put on the tap, you get lemonade. Every stone is a sweet. And you go to sleep and tomorrow the same home comes back spanking clean. This, I said, if somebody destroys your home, will be happy. No, Bittu uncle, not happy. I said, well, every langur lives in such a magic home. And the whole planet is like that. The Titanic can sink because the hull could not repair itself. Even today, we have seen the skies turned blue. The rivers of in Hardwar, the rivers, instead of flowing with all Gandbala, they started to flow pure. But that was only nature telling us, if you stop doing damage, I'll do it. You don't have to go out planting trees. I have got enough butterflies, birds, bees, monkeys to do that. Those of us who are fighting to protect nature, we have to also take a humility pill. You cannot go around fighting and shouting with people because then you might as well shout against the wind. There will never be a V-turn, there will be a U-turn. That U-turn should have happened 2 decades ago, but maybe people like me and people who were then there did not have the skill, we did not have the science on our side for the ordinary man to understand. At this point, I would put it to you like this. We want roadless wildernesses. We want wilderness which have no lights in them. If you take a satellite map at night and you see a dark area, you can be very sure that that dark area will have a large degree of biodiversity. You make a small path through it and वो कहते हैं कि वो कपड़ा उधड़ जाएगा. We can work together. We don't have to fight all the time. Save our energy to fight the real battles. And please, please, between us, Shinsu was a Chinese general. 2,500 years ago, he wrote a book called The Art of War. In that book, he wrote, my enemy's enemy is my friend. So if 5 people were fighting together against each other for resources, and then a 6th person came who was going to kill all 5 people, you would get the 5 people to get together to fight the common enemy, then go back to fighting your own battles. At this point, I see too many battles between NGOs, between environmentalists, between scientists, between all of us. We are divided in our diversity, and the people destroying the environment are united in their greed. So I think that we are strategically we have been outplayed. But the one thing that gives me a sense of hope, they will not be able to destroy this beyond a point. Today, coal is not dying because Devaditya or Bitu Saigal or Biswajit Mohanty or some Prerna Bindra went out and tried to stop a coal. It is being stopped because the market is telling you we cannot support this. There is a cheaper force, there is a much better way to do it. So, in a sense, all of us will have to work at the tri-junction of biodiversity, economics, and climate change, which is a spoiler for both. And the biggest battle I feel that we have lost and we have to regain is the battle between people and parks. Those people who have 15, 20, 30 years ago said, people will protect the forest. We know for a fact now that with the forces ranged against us, unless wildlifers and social activists and human rights people get together to understand that the biggest human right, the most important human right, is my right to breathe clean air, drink pure water, and eat unpoisoned food. If we can get together with this, and if we can also get together to understand that COVID-19 was a direct result of the illegal wildlife trade. COVID-19 came across because the viruses that lived with bats escaped. They spilt over and they went into pangolins. Pangolins are the largest now traded mammal in Asia and parts of Africa. From there, it went to humans. Viruses we will never defeat. Those of us fighting for wildlife have suddenly to change our outlook, fight for the ecosystems, but let our victories be collateral benefits of the real battle, which is one health. There is no difference between the health of humans, the health of wildlife, and the health of domestic animals. These three have to be looked at together. And there is absolutely no doubt about the fact that the most democratic way for goods and resources to be distributed to our people is through nature. The rain falls, anybody can drink it. The river flows, anybody can tap it. When you centralize a river's water and then you give it only to a sugarcane man here or an industry there, all the people in between are starved of resources. All this we know. What we don't know is how to work together. And I'm telling you this, I'm now 73 years old, If we don't work together, then you might as well go on an island and sit in a hammock, because whether you shout and fight and you do this, it makes no difference unless we get together. Like Shinsu had said, my enemy's enemy is my friend, and my enemy is not personal enemy. My enemy is the person who has not woken up. वो कुंभकर्ण को जगाना बहुत आसान है, but somebody who is pretending to sleep, how do you wake him up? Every single oil, gas, coal producer now knows, every cement manufacturer knows that what we are doing is wrong and unsustainable. How are we going to take that knowledge of theirs, implant it in our children, through their parents, and fight in the courts when we have to? Reserve our energy now to fight those who are destroying the environment. Let us bury our own differences. Let us work together as forest officers, as bureaucrats, as scientists, as researchers, as teachers, as poets, as writers, as musicians, as dancers. We are the people who make up this country. And it may seem like a big political speech I'm giving. I'm not. I'm talking with panic because I'm telling you, I know there is not any more time. When Dr. Salim Ali was around, when Kailash Sankla was around, when S.R. Roy Chowdhury was around, when Dev Roy was there, when Fateh Singh was there, we had time. We had time. Now that time has gone. The elasticity of time is not there anymore. So I would say all the things that we are talking about today and the films and what Rohit is doing, look at what Rohit is doing. Death threats, no problem. He's been still going ahead. We have to support people like this. And we have to support each other. And thank you. I took a little longer and I have to go because right now, the Sanctuary Wildlife Photography Award judging is going on. Steve Winter is in one place. Somebody is in Africa and all. And I'm sitting here talking to my own family, which is you all. I beg your leave. I want to see the film. I want to show it to a lot of children and schools and colleges. So please help me to do that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your thoughts. And as always, when you speak, so we just listen. And I think it's now time for people of this country and government to take responsibility and we all work together. One quote, he said, don't get angry, get involved. And we must get, work together. Before taking questions, I will just quickly go to Rohit. He's also here. Hello, Rohit. I have known
Rohit, I have to hath jodo and beg for forgiveness because I will have to. I hope you are recording this because I.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. You will definitely. Yeah.
Thank you
We'll
very
share the
much.
link.
I have to push off.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank
So
you.
sorry, this is my real constituency, and Rohit, I won't interrupt anymore, but I will call you after all this is over. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, sir. So I have known Rohit for past several years, and I have witnessed how he has single-handedly fought the legal battle to protect Kaziranga in various forums, not just courts. And for us, it is quite easy and comfortable to go there, click photos, enjoy the sightings, come back, share photos on social media, write articles, or as a lawyer filing cases in courts. But the groundwork, the actual real groundwork is done by people like him, who risk everything for the cause. And Rohit lives on the edge of Kaziranga National Park, and he has received life threats in the past, like Bittu sir also just told everyone. And it needs a lot of courage and perseverance, sacrifices to do this kind of work. So Rohit, I must congratulate you not just for getting these orders for Supreme Court, but continuing this fight with some visible impact. And we have seen implementation of laws and judgments depend greatly on the monitoring by local activists and proactiveness of regional authorities. And we had a glimpse of it during shooting of this movie last year. So tell me, being born and brought up in Kaziranga, then moving Delhi for a job, and then taking up this legal fight to save Kaziranga, and getting such landmark orders from court, which is quite unexpected for you. Also told me many times that you never expected for this order. You just did your work, and somehow it bear fruit. And we all know it is a lifelong battle. It is not like today you will get an order and tomorrow your work is over. Okay. So do you have this feeling that you were destined to be working for Kaziranga? And what do you think is the future of Kaziranga?
Thank you, Debaditya, for inviting me for this discussion. I feel truly honored to be part of this discussion where Honorable Justice Deepak Gupta sir is present, Honorable Dr. S.P. Yadav sir is present, Bittu Sehgal sir was also there, and P. Sukumar sir is present. Yes, I feel very much fortunate and blessed to work for Kaziranga National Park. And when you say, how do I feel for Kaziranga? Honestly speaking, I think there is no future for Kaziranga in the long term. A century back, we started with a handful of rhinos, and it looks like we will end up with a handful of rhinos again. I say this looking at the ground reality. Neither the forest department nor the government has any vision. Kaziranga is being managed in an ad hoc way. The government is not serious about Kaziranga, and it is proven by the fact that the funds given by the NTCA under Project Tiger have not been released so far to the park. Is this the way you manage Kaziranga? And this is happening under all governments. The landscape around Kaziranga is fast changing. The agricultural land, which acts as a passage for wildlife, is being used for commercial purposes. As Dr. S.P. Yadav told, we cannot protect or corridors are very important. And in this case of Kaziranga and Karbi Anglong side, more hotels, houses, dhabas, resorts coming up between Chaklabanda and Bokagad on the southern side of the park. On the other hand, River Brahmaputra is eroding the park from the northern side. Karbi Anglong is witnessing change in forest cover, which is not favorable for wildlife in the long term. Within the forest department, there is a rift between the wildlife wing and forestry wing. Buxar Reserve Forest, which is very good forest for dispersing wildlife, has not been handed over to the Kaziranga Tiger Reserve. NTCA have written letters to the state government to bring the Buxar Reserve Forest under the unified control of Kaziranga National Park Administration for better protection of tiger, rhinos, and other wildlife of Kaziranga National Park. Unless there is a radical change in the way the state government and the forest department's approach towards managing Kaziranga, there is really not much hope. And when we speak about this Supreme Court order, I must thank first the NTCA, second the Central Empowered Committee, then finally Honorable Honorable Supreme Court of India for coming to the rescue of this national park. There was a clear-cut order. Any EC which is within the 10 kilometers boundary from any protected area, needs to have a permission from National Board for Wildlife. It's very unfortunate that mining kept on going on in the just within 1 or 2 kilometers from the park boundary. Why it should happen? Finally, you every time you cannot blame NTCA or you cannot say anything to court, because in this case I filed a complaint with the Ministry of Environment and Forest. They directed the NTCA to investigate the matter. NTCA sent its regional inspector general of forest, and it verified the area, and they found my complaint to be true. And what next? After finding my complaint true, they submitted a report, and they wrote to the Chief Secretary of the government of Assam to implement this and to ban mining and stone crusher activities. But it never happened. NTCA's letter was not taken seriously. And then I had to file it to CEC. When CEC came and visited, it found live mining. It even found elephants on the mining sites. Then it went on and submitted a report to Honorable Supreme Court. And then finally, the Honorable Supreme Court of India came to the rescue of Kaziranga National Park. But tell me, how many times people can approach the Honorable Supreme Court? Any activist, small activist like me from the faraway place from Delhi, it's not possible to approach Supreme Court every time. And Supreme Court has given a very beautiful order. But what next? Yes, mining has stopped. That's a very good thing. But what it has also ordered that there should not be any construction on the corridor areas. But I will say, unfortunately, the construction still goes on. And very recently, I had to file a complaint with the Central Empowered Committee with regard to the construction of a resort type or a construction of a big house on the Kanchanjuri corridor. And CEC has to write 3 correspondences to the chief, first to the Chief Wildlife Warden, and then third time to the Chief Secretary to get a reply on it. Because
Rohit, I will just interrupt you because I know you have many stories to tell, and this is the story with everywhere with all activists, and this really shows the challenges faced by people, and that's why I told you initially that your job doesn't stop today. You complete, constantly you have to be after following up everything, because right now we are already over time and we have to take a couple of questions as well, and our guests are also we have let them sit there because they are all quite
yeah, please, now we can take on questions. I can understand that.
So thank you, Rohit, and I wish you all the very best, and surely we will
thank you,
together and
thank you
help the Kaziranga and also Mr. Shiv Kumar. So we have 3 questions. I will take 1 question for Justice Gupta, 1 for Dr. Yadav, and 1 for Field Director of Kaziranga, Mr. Shiv Kumar. So first question is for Justice Gupta. So there are 2-3 questions. I will just summarize those questions and just tell you. The thing is that how does the judiciary draw a line between being proactive and not interfering into the executive function? What if elephant corridors are provide the legal sanctity? To what extent do you think it will resolve the human-elephant conflict? And alternatively, should we focus more on existing tools such as eco-sensitive zone, community reserve, conservation reserve? To this, I also want to add one experience that Supreme Court has driven this process of declaring ESZs around all the protected areas. But the implementation was again in the state. And we all know this ESZ, how states have declared. In some cases 0 meters, some cases 100 meters. It is more forcefully, and states are not willing to do this thing. So your thoughts on this?
So the first big question is, how does the judiciary draw the line? That's a question which you can't have any clear-cut answer. Let me be very clear. But for me, having said that, I have been an activist judge throughout my 16 years as a judge. I drew the line that I will do what is within within the corners of law. But there will be areas where the law is silent. As Dr. Yadav pointed out, the law is silent with regard to corridors. When the law is silent with regard to corridors, we can step in and say what the NTCA says, or what I'm forgetting if Dr. Yadav can help me out, that authority we declared the elephant corridors. There was a committee, if I'm not mistaken. So there was a committee. So the Supreme Court said, we are accepting that report and saying that this is a corridor which has because what is ordered by the Supreme Court is also law for the country. So then, you have to, be active in certain fields. My only problem comes in when there is not public interest litigation, but publicity interest litigation or PESA interest litigation. There are so many other, forms of litigation which are not PIL. So the judge has to be very careful that he does not get involved in cases which are like that. You see, we've had some wonderful orders. At 3 years, I was heading the Green Bench. I not only passed the orders, but because I was a part of the Green Bench for 3 years, I monitored my orders. And what Rohit is saying is very right. The court passes orders, but it has to be treated like a continuous mandamus. Like the Godavarman case. Mr. Godavarman has died. I think nobody even knows who he is. But his case has brought back life to forests. If Mr. Godavarman's case was not there, I am sorry, but a lot of forests would have already gone. So there are things, this line, how to be drawn, individual judges will draw it individually. But as I said, my line is that I will act. I have taken an oath. As a judge, I take an oath to protect the Constitution and the law, uphold the Constitution and the laws. So anything which is constitutional and legal, I will do within the bounds of that. I'll pass on. So coming to your second question is the elephant corridor. That's again that I've answered. It's like by, it's more by, because I said in my presentation also that we need to have a specific law for corridors. I think the time has now come that we should have a specific law for corridors. But till that law does not come, the courts will have, you are all aware, Vidhi especially is aware, the Vishakha judgment, sexual harassment at workplaces. So the court said, till the legislature does not make a law, this will be the law. So the courts can rule that this will be the law. And that is what we've done in the elephant corridor case. I was part of the bench which passed the order stopping instruction. And now Justice Nazir, and please go through that judgment. It's a very, very beautifully written judgment. It's going to be of great help to wildlife activists throughout the country for other forms of, it may deal with elephants, but for all forms of. Eco-sensitive zones, there was some dispute. Earlier there was an order many years back that 10 kilometers will be the eco-sensitive zone around a sanctuary. But actually, when we went through the papers, there was no clear-cut order. That order was for a particular period and then it had lapsed. So, and you cannot have 10 kilometers as a standard. Now, let me give a national park like Kanha may require an eco-sensitive zone of 20 kilometers around it. But there is a small bird sanctuary near Simla, which is hardly 6 square kilometers or 8 square kilometers. It may not require that sort of, it will also depend on the nature of the animal. So somewhere we finally, though we may or may not, we have to trust people also. We can't say, jo hum kar rahe hain, wohi theek hai, and everybody else is doing wrong. Because these are economic reasons why they do it. And I have great friends in the Forest Service, and they're doing tremendous job. They also live, like Rohit is under the threat. Some of them have lived, I know many of them who, face threats. But why are those threats given? Because of economic reasons. Mainly because of economic reasons. Kisi ki bhatti band ho jayegi, kisi ki mine band ho jayegi, so he wants to ensure that that is not closed. So then that answer lies that we have to develop a system, a legal system, which gives protection to these people. And as far as eco-sensitive, it cannot be uniform. It will have to depend on sanctuary to sanctuary. And in fact, that case was pending before, but then I demitted office. We were inclined to make it that if there is no reasons given, make it 5 or 6 kilometers. And then for reasons to be recorded in writing, it could, but then because of COVID, court meetings were, the court working came to a standstill. But I was proposing that we should have a, 5-kilometer thing. And if any sanctuary wants to reduce it, then they will have to give reasons, go back to the Ministry of Environment and Forest. You see, you lay down some minimum. And then if somebody wants an exception, not the other way around. Ki koi minimum hai nahi, now you want to lay more than. So that is. Anyway, I think I've answered all your questions.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And Dr. Yadav, sorry to make you waited because I just saw the message that you have some prior engagement at 7:30 and you're patiently waiting, for this thing. So I will just take this question to you. One question is, what is the impact of night traffic ban in tiger reserves like Bandipur? Whether we will be forced to open up roads due to the pressure of different kind of thing. And one more question I want to ask you, that there are also many reserve forest areas which are not yet protected areas or tiger reserve declared, but they have tiger movement, they have tiger population. And in many cases, we have seen that, because of public, opinion, because if people get to know tigers is there, somehow, because now all the tigers areas are full, they have made their saturation point and they are moving out. They are dispersing different areas. I know few areas where tigers are there, but the department tries to, prevent casualty by saying no tiger nahi hai. Okay. They also avoid like giving notice to NTCA, which the protocol says, like you can inform the NTCA. This is the problem which I think in every state they are facing, and also there's always a apprehension about NTCA not ho jayega to hamari power chali jayegi. So how do you manage all this kind of thing? NTCA authority, and it is duty of every state, every officers to inform you anything related to tiger. Yeah.
Thank you, Devaditya, for these two questions. First, about the night traffic ban in Bandipur, especially that road. In fact, it has been very good for the wildlife. There have been fewer deaths due to road hits in that sector. And because, the wildlife movement is more during the night, evening and morning time. So this has definitely helped. And all these things, they need continuous monitoring over a long period. And that has to be done. But in Bandipur, we have a report that it is helping a lot. So night ban is good. And there have been tremendous pressure by state government to lift that ban, but the Karnataka government has supported it, and that's why it's still going on. And we will support this night ban in Bandipur Tiger Reserve. Another question about the tigers outside Tiger Reserve. There are 30% tiger population which is outside tiger reserves. And jokingly, I say that there are two types of tigers, one above poverty line, another below poverty line. Above poverty line, they're rich tigers, they live in the tiger reserves, where centrally sponsored, we provide funding support through Project Tiger, and there's a lot of manpower, field director, so many things, all focus, tourism and everything. The poor tiger lives outside tiger reserves, below poverty line, because as you rightly said, the officers, even they don't own them, they don't recognize their presence. But our All India Tiger estimation that has clearly indicated that there are 30% tiger population outside tiger reserves. And mind it that we have mapped all tiger potential areas in the country. So there is no escape of responsibility of owning or disowning them. So we are continuously monitoring all these tigers. In fact, we are implementing conservation assured tiger standards, which is a kind of tiger standard certification, international norms. And this is being, initially it was implemented outside tiger reserves, especially to give protection and importance to tigers which are poor, below poverty line. So you'll be surprised to know that now Ramnagar Forest Division in Uttarakhand, Lansdowne Forest Division in Uttarakhand, and 24 South Pargana Forest Division in West Bengal, they are not tiger reserves, but they have been accredited with international certification of conservation assured tiger standards. So it's not that we are leaving these tigers, all tigers, wherever they are found, we own them, we monitor them, and we will monitor continuously with all our might and power. Thank you, Devaditya. And I'm so sorry I have to leave because I have another engagement. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity to interact with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your time, and sorry for keeping you waited. And all the very best for your endeavors. So one last question for Director Kaziranga National Park, or Mr. Shiv Kumar. There's one suggestion actually, it's taken as a question also. How about issuing ID cards to people who live in the corridor area, which can help in preventing new and more people coming in and settling in the corridor area illegally? So any opinions on that?
That is possible. We already done the inventory about the present establishment property belongs to all those data already collected. Even recently, after the Supreme Court order that people are not taking much interest buying the lands, so at least that land value has come down. But basically, people, they are looking for a compensation because they know that they can't do any activities on their land, so they're ready to sell the land to the forest department. So that the compensation part, we have to work it out.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So now I think we have to close this session. We are already over time. So now I invite my colleague Shama Kuriakose for the vote of thanks. Both Shama and I worked together to produce this movie with the Riverbank Studios, and you might have already read this case brief she wrote on this entire movie about the judgments and how they implemented based on the field visits. And if you haven't, then I insist you download the case brief from our website. The link of the case brief will be shared in the chat box. And also the YouTube link, it will be available on the website. So over to you, Shama, for the vote of thanks. You are muted, Shama, you are muted. You have to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Devtyo. Thank you everyone for patiently being around all this while. And this has been a very interesting and insightful session. I would like to especially thank our honored panelists, Justice Deepak Gupta, Dr. S.P. Yadav and Vitu Sehgal, for providing their years of experience and for providing us insights on how wildlife conservation needs to be correctly done. Apart from that, I would like to also thank Rohit and Shiv Kumar sir, the director of Kaziranga, as well as the forest rangers for facilitating our visit to the park as well as all the mining sites. It was very risky to be in those mining sites, but we were provided with a lot of help. And for that, we have to especially thank Shiv Kumar sir. I would also like to thank the former member secretary of NTCA, Anup Naik sir, for having spared his precious time to give us insights on how the NTCA responded after Rohit made his complaints on the Kaziranga mining issues. And of course, it would be great also to thank Dia Mirza, who has helped us with the prologue for this film, as well as for all our other films. So we are very grateful to her. We were also collaborating with one of the best film studios on environment filmmaking, Riverbank Studio, and the team has stood by us and helped us through the entire process. So for this, I would like to thank the Riverbank Studio team, including Gautam Pandey, Dowal Trivedi, Gautam Arora, Arjun Sundaram, Aditi Sharma, and Ranjit Kumar. I would also thank Tata Education and Development Trust and Universal Comfort Products Limited for having funded this project. Obviously, I cannot end it without thanking the environment team, and thank you, Devvrityo, for really supporting us through this and for moderating so well. And I also thank Yogni and Isha for all the support that we got through this project. I'd also like to thank Vidhi Research Director Orgo Sen Gupta and Vidhi co-founder Dhwani Mehta for mentoring us through this process. Last of all, thanks to all the guests for being around, for attending this important session, and hope you watch this film. This, like as Dave mentioned, the film link will be available, and hope we can do better and more better screenings with increased audience once the COVID situation improves. Please watch out for our next film, which we'll announce the date for it pretty soon. You can follow us on our Twitter profile with the #India. So there we'll keep posting updates for this project and the upcoming films. Take care, stay safe everybody, and have a really good evening. Thank you.